Welcome to our Sound for Video session. It's the 22nd of April, 2017. Question and answer session. Let's get started here. First, we have a question from Marshall Harrington. And he says, "Hey Curtis, I'm working on a shoot where there will always be 2 and sometimes 3 cameras running. I'm using the small Blackmagic cameras, which don't have provisions for sound sync. I want each of the cameras to be fed output from the sound recorders so syncing and post can be done in Resolve, which is where I first ingest my footage. I'll likely be using its alignment procedure, which is based on analyzing the waveforms, similar to Pluralize, but not quite as good. Since we shoot RAW, we need something that will ingest the DNGs nicely. Once we're through initial color and sound sync, we'll move it over to Premiere to cut. How can I expect they get multiple signals out? Splitters? I've never had a good experience doing that." All right, and then you ask also, is there a device that works like a reverse Mackie? I assume you mean reverse of a mixer, a mixing board of some sort. In my specific case, I have a combination of 1/4-inch balanced and 3.5mm stereo inputs. I have the cabling for the XLR to 1/4, though not for the 3.5mm inputs. Love to hear your thoughts and recommendations. Let me know if this is not clear to you. Thanks, Marshall. Marshall, the output from, I don't know what your recordist is using or your mixer is using in terms of hardware for doing the mixing and recording. Most of them have 3 outputs. Most of the professional grade ones have 3 outputs, but even the Zoom F8 has, I don't know if you can see this from there, but a sub out plus a left and a right, what's often called left and right, or 1 and 2 main outputs. So these 2 are balanced and this is an unbalanced. I think if I understand correctly, if you're using the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera and the Blackmagic Cinema camera, I know the Pocket camera has a 3.5mm input for audio. It's a microphone input. It's not, you can't set it to line level, to just microphone. And then for the Cinema camera, you have 2 1/4-inch balanced mic or line input. So, Blackmagic did some funny things on some of their earlier cameras. This one, for example, if this is what you're using, Blackmagic Cinema Camera EF, 1/4-inch balance is pretty rare. And it's a somewhat unusual, but I think they did it because they had a small form factor camera. It's kind of awkward, but yeah, your XLR to 1/4-inch should work just fine from most recorders. So again, I don't know what your mixer is using, but and if they have 3 of them, which they most likely do, if they have one of the nicer devices, then hopefully they have that. But I guess we need more information on that. This one's going to be a little bit more of a challenge if you are using the Pocket camera. The Pocket camera only has a 3.5mm microphone input. So depending again on the recorder or mixer that the recordist has, for example, a Zoom F8 has a 3.5mm sub out, so you could actually send that directly to this camera as a mic level signal. It depends also on the recorder or mixer as whether or not the output is switchable between mic and line level. On the nicer ones, it usually is. On some of the lesser ones, it may not be. But if it's not, and it's sending a line level signal out, you could use an attenuation cable. And you can obtain those over at B&H, among many other places. Let's just see about pulling that up. Attenuation cable. And there are a whole variety of options that come up here. Whirlwind makes them, Copal. That's an SDI cable. Here's a line to mic attenuator cable. So there's an example there. We'll put a link for that down below. So hopefully that is helpful too. Now, of course, I don't know what your budget is. I'm going to assume you probably don't have budget for wireless because you're talking about cables. Of course, on the big productions, they'll generally use wireless to transmit wirelessly that information to the camera if that's necessary. So there are lots of options out there. I would love to have some electrosonics for that purpose, but I can't afford them. And I'm going to bet that you're probably not in that financial position either, but maybe you are. If you are, that's a much longer conversation. Also, we did have an episode a while back talking about how to wirelessly send audio from your recorder or mixer to your camera using a Sennheiser G3 wireless lavalier system. And that's another option as well. We'll put a link to that. All right, thanks for the question, Marshall. Next question is Maurice Ballou. Curtis, you may have answered this in a previous session. Just point me to the right session if that's the case. My question is, I recorded a client with an NTG2 shotgun microphone while she was seated and then used a Rode lapel mic while she was walking. In hindsight, I should have used the lapel for both the seated and walking parts. The audio quality on both mics is good, but when we switch scenes from her walking to her seated, you can tell a difference in the audio of the two mics. Are there any tricks to determine how to make the mics sound the same way? Maurice, there are some tricks, as you put it, and they're actually not necessarily some tricks. I actually ran into this recently. I was helping my friend Levi shoot a product review for some lighting gear. I was operating camera and sound. We only did kind of the in-studio part when I was there, and then he went off and recorded what is essentially like a talking head intro and outro. And I don't know what mic he used. I think he used a Rode NTG3 if I had to guess. During the studio part, we had him set up with a lavalier because I was operating camera. I couldn't boom at the same time. So he ended up with a Sennheiser lavalier and what I think was probably a Rode NTG3 shotgun microphone for the intro and outro. So this is a common problem, and there are a variety of ways to do it. Generally, it involves using EQ, so equalization, to change the sound of one or both of the tracks to kind of help them sound. They're never going to sound exactly the same in most cases, but you can get them so that they're not so jarring for your audience. So let me just play through a little bit of this here and see if this illustrates it for us.
And it got a really beautiful look. And then an interview situation, you know, we do those all the time. Yeah, I wanted to show you those, and we'll dive into that right now. So what you're seeing right here is two bulbs just gaff taped on some Matthews C-stands in the back.
Okay, so those weren't perfect. That wasn't a perfect match, but what I did in this particular case, you could just use EQ. You use your ears, you listen to one, and then you use the EQ plug-in or effect to sculpt the sound of the other one to try and make it sound a little bit more like the first one. That's more than we can cover here. There's actually, I think it's a great idea for a future episode, so I actually may use that here in the next couple of weeks as a topic for our sound sessions here. But there's also another option. I don't know if you have RX available to you. Let's just show you really quickly here. RX has some tools that make this actually quite easy. So here we are in RX, and this is Izotope RX5. RX6 actually just came out. I'll be looking at that next week when I go to NAB. But what this has in it is a very nice feature that allows you to do EQ matching. So you can see here, just a very simple interface. What you do is just highlight a section of it, go ahead and have it learn that section. So it actually plays through that audio or looks through that audio. Let's have it do that again. It's very fast. Okay. And it creates sort of an EQ footprint or kind of a starting point. And what you do then is you open up the other file. Say, for example, this was the shotgun microphone file. You can open up the other audio recording for the lavalier, and you simply process it, applying however much you want. You can actually preview it and listen to it first, but that makes it very simple for you. So here, for example, you can see this one's looks like it's got quite a bit of bass in this, and then it falls off. But it just applies that EQ footprint to the other file. And that's actually the result that I got. So that's another thing you can do if you're looking for tricks. The only problem, of course, with Izotope RX is that it's fairly expensive. So I don't know what your budget is, but that's the quick and easy way to do it. The more sophisticated way to do it we'll cover in a future episode here using EQ plugins. Not more sophisticated, I should say, the more manual approach to doing it, which incidentally is a good way to do it, to get used to or to kind of help you learn and understand how that works. And then I think it's better if you're doing that a lot, then of course RX makes sense where you can have it do it much quicker for you. Thanks for the question, Maurice. All right, next question is Vini. Hi, Curtis, it's me again. Vini from Brazil. I have a simple question, but this is disturbing me a lot. I have a Tascam DR44WL. I use that recorder as my main recorder when I'm booming on a movie, but I have problems when I'm recording. I do not know how to hold it or where to put it. So I can record and monitor the recorder. I try to put it in my pocket, but I can't see if the input is too loud or too quiet and the cables don't fit. In short, my question is, how can I hold small recorders like the Tascam DR44WL or a Zoom H4n while I'm booming? All right. That That is a good question. And I think, Vinny, I think the first thing is that those are not really made for operating, for boom operators. They're really made for setting on a table or perhaps mounting on top of a camera. So kind of a different form factor that doesn't necessarily work great for that. But let's just look up the Tascam. Yeah, it has that same form factor. So I assume on this one, the XLR inputs are down on the bottom. I don't think there's an easy answer to that, Vinny. I'm sorry. I guess I have seen some people, you just have to rig up your own thing, whatever it is you can get to work. There is, if I'm not mistaken, I think this has a 1/4-20 tap on the back. You could use that to attach to some sort of strap. It won't be perfect, and you'll have to kind of bend over to actually see it because it'll have the microphones pointing down. At least you'll be able to glance and at least get somewhat of a look. But it's just form factor wise and ergonomically, it's just not made for that purpose. So perhaps you could fashion some sort of desk that you can suspend from straps from your shoulder that comes out, and then you could set it down on that. That's a possibility, maybe. Yeah, I think you're just gonna have to get creative and find a way to make a surface for it to sit on, and that'll be your best bet. So good luck with that, Vinny. Sorry I couldn't help more on that. Next, Paul. How do you get a good sound in an industrial area with great noise? Well, I don't know a lot about the type of piece you're shooting. If it were more of a... if you could get away with an interview type microphone, a handheld interview type microphone, I think in terms of sound, that's going to be your best bet because you can use then a dynamic microphone, and that's pretty good at picking up what's really close to it, like this one, but not picking up a lot of the ambient sound. So that would be my number one choice. Other than that, if there's a lot of industrial noise going on, booming in really close with a boom microphone of some sort, whether it's a shotgun or a hypercardioid or supercardioid, that's another thing you can do. There are some cardioid lavalier microphones available on the market as well. They don't tend to, in my experience, they don't sound great, most of them, but you could use those as well. The trick with those is that if the talent bumps them and they get misaligned, then you have to stop the take, fix it, re-aim it, and record again. So I would probably go with a handheld mic, a dynamic mic, if I could, if that works okay for your piece. If not, I would try to hand boom, not on top of the camera. That's going to be, you're going to pick up too much noise that way. But if you can have someone with a boom pole actually booming it in as close as possible, that's going to be, those are probably going to be your best bets. So hope that's helpful for you, Paul, and best luck with your project there. All right, I think we have one more question here from Kevin Edwards. Hi there, Curtis. I'm looking for a very tight pickup and good side and rear rejection. I have a 416 and 816 and an AT4053B. Each has its own great attitudes, but there is something out there. But is there something out there with all of the above? Regards, Kevin. So just to describe, 416 is a Sennheiser MKH 416. It's a very, traditionally it's been used a whole bunch in movie production. Shotgun microphone. The 816 is kind of its big brother. It's a long shotgun microphone, and I don't believe they make those anymore. In fact, if we come here, you can see a picture of one. So that's an 816. You can see it's really, really long. That one has a much tighter pickup pattern, but it's a really long microphone, so it's a little bit unwieldy, and it's kind of a special purpose mic in my opinion. And then there's the Audio-Technica 4053B, which is a hypercardioid small diaphragm condenser. It's not a shotgun microphone, and it's the one that I use almost always for indoor dialogue for the shoots that I do. I don't think there is such a thing, Kevin. I'm sorry. From my knowledge, there's not something that does all three of those things. I guess the closest thing I can think of is Sheps makes the Super CMIT 2U, which is a digital microphone that does some processing and noise reduction. So it will have a couple different modes. Number one, it'll have a mode that's very much like the 416, and it will have another mode that's very much like the 816, but it goes about it a different way. It doesn't use a long shotgun mic. It's just still a short shotgun mic, but it does some digital processing to eliminate some of the ambient noise. So That's the closest I can think of. The only problem with that microphone is it approaches $5,000 US. So I don't know if you have a budget for something like that. And I don't know how well it does indoors. It is a shotgun microphone, so it may not be the ideal choice for indoors. But again, I haven't tested it, so I don't know for sure. I think the kind of the theme here is, though, if you've got those three mics, I know it'd be nice to have a single mic, but there's a good reason to have different mics. The mics each have their own personalities, if you will. They each have the things that they're good at and other things they're not necessarily so good at. So I think if you already own all three of those, that's a really nice kit. Actually, you could do a lot with that kit, and I don't know of one that can replace all three of those. So unless someone else has got some ideas, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. That would be awesome. All right, I'm going to NAB next week, so next week's Sound for Video session will probably be some sort of on-the-floor interview with one of the manufacturers that's related to sound. Going to keep my eyes out and see what's available there. I know I am going to talk to a number of different folks. We do have an interview or sort of a time slot set up with Sound Devices, who have just announced a new set of products for podcasters and enthusiast filmmakers called the MixPre 3 and the MixPre 6. They're smaller scale recorders. So, of course, here's their 633 from Sound Devices. This is smaller than that by a significant amount. They're very small. They have a new preamplifier design, but if it's done by, they designed it. So if they are very good at designing preamplifiers in my experience. So I'm pretty excited to see those. They're priced at, I believe, $650 and $900 respectively. The first one has, I believe, 3 mic inputs, and the other one has 4 mic inputs plus, anyway, I'll get the details on that, but that's one thing I'll be talking, one manufacturer I'll be talking to. I'll probably talk to some of the microphone makers as well. Reading Audio is there, who is the distributor for Sheps in the United States, as well as Rycote, I believe. And then I'll also probably talk to DPA. Been very impressed with the shotgun microphone I have from DPA that I've had for just the last couple of months there. So if you have any specific manufacturers that you're curious about, I'd love to get a note from you. Go ahead and email me and let me know. And I'll do my best to take a look at them. Also, some people asked what this is. This is not a full episode, but what we've got in the rack here. And this is just a pretty simple rack, but let me just run you through it for those that are interested. This is just sort of a gee whiz kind of thing more than anything else. So first of all, I have a Furman PL8C power conditioner. So the idea is this is, you've all heard of surge protectors. This is kind of a step beyond that. So electricity can do lots of funny things, and having a surge is just one thing that can happen. But I also, one of my friends, Dave Dugdale, I remember, had some issues with some electricity in his office, and he was having problems. It was actually causing his PC to freeze. And in the end, they found that he had some dirty power, if you will. So that's what the purpose of this is. The next thing is a channel strip by a company called Focusrite. This one's not made anymore. It's a Trackmaster Pro. It's not exactly high. It's not really high end, but it was my first piece of rack mount gear. By channel strip, what I mean is it has a microphone input on it. It has a very simple equalizer. It has an optical compressor. It's an analog compressor, which is 2 simple controls, and then it outputs. And it's very simple. So it's a single microphone input, and it does that processing and then outputs it. It's pretty simple, and it does a nice job. I really like the analog compressor on this. It works very nicely. So that's what that piece is. How often do I use this? I don't use it quite as much anymore. I did use it quite a bit in the past. When I need to record something that's not actually, well, what's the best way to put it? Something where I need to turn it around pretty quickly, I'll go ahead and bake in the compressing on the recording itself. So I'll do this, I'll run through this and then output this to an audio interface and record to computer. And it works really nicely. I don't have to do nearly as much work in post to kind of contain the transient peaks on the audio, and it's ready to go. And then finally, we have the Orion Studio. This is an audio interface made by Antelope Audio. It's my main audio interface. It's a really nice one. It drives my monitors, my powered monitors. So it also, of course, is a microphone preamplifier. It has, I believe, 10 microphone inputs. And as you can tell, I don't use those a whole lot. I don't use that many that often. But it does a really nice job. And it has in it a digital signal processor, so you can do a whole bunch of things. Like it does have a compressor, it has a whole bunch of equalizers, it has a whole bunch of stuff. It's very similar. It's kind of a competitor, if you will, to the Universal Audio Apollo system. So it's a Thunderbolt 2 interface, and I route it directly into my iMac. So that's what that is there. It is in a case or a rack mount kind of portable case, so I can take it with me. I haven't had a lot of opportunities to take it with me, but it travels pretty nicely on the 2 occasions I have had to move it with me. So in any case, that's what that is. So anything else? I think that's it for this week. Thanks everybody for your questions. Keep getting out there and making some great recordings, and we'll talk to you again next week. Take care, everybody.